Today we chat with Emily, who has an experience with her husband that seems to have come out of a nightmare. Let's start with the first thing you noticed in your home in the Catskills. What makes you feel like something different?
I remember it was a bright October night. Luke and I were wrapped in blankets, watching a documentary about haunted houses, which is a fascinating documentary about Greg and Dana Newkirk. We were especially interested in one object, the crone, a wooden statue carved in incredible detail. Until it almost looks lively, it is related to Mortia, goddess of fate and dates. That day is October 25th. It is said to be the day the goddess awakened. That night when we went to bed, I felt a weight in the room. Our diffused lavender oil is almost calming. It smells too strong and thick. The air was not only still, the house itself seemed to be holding its breath.
Did anything happen that night?
Yes, I was suddenly awakened by the sound of scratching, like nails scraping something hard. We have 2 cats. I think it's just one of those things. But then I noticed they were both curled up next to each other, and looked at the bathroom door. Our adventurous cat, Tabby, stares intently at the door. His fur stood on end. Meanwhile, our other cat is hiding under the bed. His eyes widened. I wanted to ignore it and pretend it was nothing, but Tubby wouldn't stop staring at the door. His eyes didn't blink, green like the neon light in a dim room. The scratching continued at a steady pace, and I could almost feel it in my chest, cold head, like fingers running down my spine.
And have you checked the bathroom?
Yes, I do. I think I'd better take the test, even though my heart is pounding. I slowly walk towards the bathroom door, turn on the light, and open it. The room was as empty as when we left, but there's something. It is closed. The trash can has moved slightly to the right height, but in the wrong position. It might be something small. But when I turned around, I saw a shadow move across the wall. At first I thought it was a light trick, but it was too fast, too dark. I turned around, but there was nothing. Just a dim light of the hallway lights, cat stares, and that stunning silence. I closed the door and went back to sleep. But all night I feel like something is watching us.
Does Luke feel the same way, or is it just you?
Oh, Luke feels it too, even though he tried to brush it off. A few nights later he heard that scratching sound. This time it sounded like it was coming from the bathroom the first time. Then it was down the hallway. He thought maybe it was a rat or something. But the next morning there was no sign at all. No scratch, there was no basis, nothing at all. It was just silence. We would hear it every night after that. He is a scrappy, quiet person, like something is trying to get into our lives. Then one night we heard a sound. It's very faint. There was hardly a whisper, but there was a help. We both sat frozen on the bed. Listen to that soft voice of pleading. It was like there was someone next to us, but when we turned around, there was nothing.
So how does that make you feel? Know that you can't explain.
I feel powerless, really can't help myself. I kept telling myself it was just my imagination, but every day the house grew colder. Like flowing through a wall makes us cold. Our cat won't go near the bathroom after dark. Tubby will suffocate if she comes too close. And our other cat doesn't even go into the hallway at night. And those shadows, they seemed almost familiar, like having eyes. I watched these figures walk along the wall. But they are too high, too dark to be just a shadow, and at night the scratching sound would come back and crawl down the hallway to our room. I lay there, wide awake, waiting and listening.
Has it ever occurred to you that this house, is it haunted?
Yes, but I don't want to believe that. I'd like to believe it's all in my head. But everything went wrong. One evening I went to the bathroom and saw something that gave me no chills. There was a faint but unmistakable handprint on the bathroom mirror. I wiped it off, thinking it was from the steam. But that night it appeared again. Same spot, same size. Then I found a small note. Hidden under the carpet in the bathroom, it was as if someone had left it there. It was old and bent, and the only word was run.
Have you ever thought about leaving home?
Yes, we do. But there is a part of me that feels pulled in, like something didn't want me to leave. I know it sounds strange, but the house seemed to lock us there. Every time we try to leave, something will happen. The scratching sound grew louder and the shadows darkened. Then one night we heard that sound again. This time up close, a plea, a whisper. Just one word. Help. It seemed like this house was trying to tell us something. Something bad happened. The fear that overwhelms us makes me feel like I'm stuck in someone else's nightmare. And I know that whatever it is, it won't stop until it gets what it wants.
And when you decided to quit?
Yes. One morning, the first light streamed through the window. We packed up our things and drove away. But when we pulled out of the driveway, I looked back one last time. There was a figure at the window, a woman watching us. Her face was distorted, sad, almost pleading. I didn't know who or what it was, but I followed her eyes and we drove on.
Do you think you'll ever go back?
No. This house belongs to someone else now. I don't know if they have the same experience, or is it just us? But there, not just a house, it is something more than that. Some things survived. I don't know how to explain it. But every time I close my eyes, I saw you waiting there.
Emily's story serves as a reminder that sometimes our sense of safety can be an illusion. And in the most quiet place, what we can't see may be closer than we think. As Halloween approaches and the nights get longer, remember this: if you ever hear a scratching sound during the night, if you feel eyes staring at you in an empty room, maybe, just maybe, there is something lurking out there that you can't see.
Welcome, young listeners, to Cashlight Tales, where shadows dance and voices whisper in the night. Today we will delve into the eerie story of uninvited guest. Make yourself comfortable and prepare for a journey filled with mystery, horror, and the supernatural. Hello everyone. I'm your host Max, and today we're delving into the heartbreaking story of Jenna Swanson, a high school girl who thought she was just attending a fun Halloween party. But oh boy, did she get more than she bargained for. Join us in solving this mystery with special guest Emma, who has been following the case closely. Emma, can you help set the scene for us?
Of course, Max. Picture this: a chilly fall day in the Catskill Mountains. The air is crisp and lightning flashes with the promise of Halloween. Trees swayed in the breeze, and old abandoned houses cast ghostly shadows that seem to beckon to those inside. Jenna steps through the stream, dressed. Sexy vampire, her heart was pounding with excitement and fear. The atmosphere was full of atmosphere. The hall resounded in the hall. And the air is heavy with the smell of sweets and something darker, as Jenna meets up with her classmates and sips an IV bag filled with a mysterious drink. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The music was loud in her ears, but it sent a chill down her spine. Then, when the clock strikes midnight, everything stopped. A costumed figure moved into the room. Their movements were surprisingly graceful. One woman in particular stood out. She is named Mortia, a remarkable figure whose haunting beauty both belies and terrifies Jenna at once.
Wow, that sounds scary. So what will happen next? Is Jenna aware of the danger she faces?
Yes, Max. Jenna takes refuge in a dark and dirty room filled with chaos. She breathed in the stale air and her heart pounded, and not just from fear, but from more ancient things. Suddenly she heard the sound of glass breaking. A classmate stumbled. His face was pale. Jenna couldn't respond, and Morticia looked angry as she buried her fangs in the boy's neck. When the gut knows the terrifying truth, fear poured in. This isn't just a party. It is a food source for vampires. The remaining students stood blank-eyed, lured by these dark creatures. Jenna felt the walls of the house closing in on her. The air was thick with an overwhelming feeling of hopelessness and fear.
That sounds really cool. What does Jenna remember that enhances this haunting experience?
When in despair, he was reminded of the story of Francois Verreau, better known as Legrel, a former cop turned serial killer who left behind a gruesome confession. His words haunted her. Written in an abandoned apartment, a man filled with anger driven to destroy innocent lives. Jenna felt a connection when she realized that the monsters lurking in the shadows were more than just creatures of the night. But it is an expression of fear, and to see a friend who was still alive and full of life was just a shadow of her former self. She felt completely powerless. Morticia approached her, stared at her, and whispered, "You taste fear. But not like this."
It's very powerful. So what will Jenna do in the face of this impending doom?
Jenna suddenly felt an almost unshakable feeling of desperation. She was always an outsider and watched from the sidelines. But now she refuses to be a puppet in this dark game. In a moment of defiance, she challenges Morticia, "Do your worst. I will not be your puppet." The air around them crawled with tension, as Morticia's eyes widened in surprise. It was a pivotal moment. Jenna's voice was steady despite the fear coursing through her. The other partygoers were still oblivious, captivated by the hostage's charms. Jenna stood alone. Her heart fluttered as the atmosphere changed. She felt empowered and ready to reclaim her story.
That was a huge turning point. But what about the twist at the end, when you escape?
As the clock strikes witching hour, Jenna mustered up her courage and slowly disappeared, revealing a world still shrouded in darkness. In this time of clarity, she realized that she had to face her fear. Not just a vampire, but also having to face the shadows within her. As Morticia approaches, Jenna felt her determination increase. She walked towards the door. The wooden panels creaked from her weight. The house seemed to hiss around her, as if it wanted to keep her inside. But Jenna is determined. She is embracing the unknown and taking the first step toward freedom. And this is the turning point. When she reached the threshold, Morticia smiled a cold smile that revealed she was more than just a vampire. She was watching Jenna wait for this moment. "You are different, little one. The hunt has just begun," she said, opening the door to reveal the next night full of possibilities.
What an incredible finish. It leaves us with many questions. So what will our young listeners benefit from?
The story reminds us that even in the face of our deepest fears, we have the power to choose our path. There are glimmers of hope even as darkness surrounds us. And sometimes the demons we face are a reflection of our own struggles. Jenna's journey teaches us the courage, resilience, and strength that come from facing the unknown.
Thank you for joining us on this eerie journey through uninvited guests with us. Remember, young listeners, darkness hides many secrets, but courage can light the way. Until next time, keep your heart brave and your imagination wild.